This is a review of the questions on the GIS Lab Quiz. This is the package of materials that was distributed for the quiz. The first question asks about analyzing renters and homeowners census type data in the town of Parma. And the first inclination would be to add the Parma census blocks data set to the ArcGIS, and there's Parma broken up into census blocks, and hopefully we can open the attribute table. But what we see is that this is a empty attribute table except for the common field, which we'll be able to use because it identifies each of the IDs of each census block in Parma. We'll be able to use this as a common field to do a table join and attach any data from American Fact Finder on any topic or any subject to the town of Parma. The one that we want to use is actually in this spreadsheet, and we see that the common field, the matching field, is called GeoID2, and it has some information about the renters and owners of properties. We'll close that spreadsheet, and since the data are in two different places, we need to do what's called a join. So we ask for join, and it's a table join. We're going to use this as the name of the common field in the shapefile, which we looked at a moment ago. We need to track down the spreadsheet, which is here, or the workbook, and now we pick the spreadsheet. We say OK. We also have to remember that the common field in the spreadsheet is called GeoID2, so these are the two columns in the two different data sources that will be able to be matched up, and we say OK. And when we open up the attribute table, we now discover that we now have all of the joins have been made, and it matched 31003 to 31003 from the spreadsheet to the attribute table of the shapefile, and here's all the information. If we want to find the total of anything, we can right-click on this column header and ask for statistics, and discover that there's 1,141 total renters, rental housing units in Parma. We can right-click on this one if we wanted to and discover that there's 4,853 owner-occupied. That answers the first question. The next order of business is to symbolize using right-click, properties, and symbology, and to symbolize these newly attributed census blocks by quantities. And we can ask for renters. We can let it have 5 categories, which it seems to do for us, and say OK. And now here's a representation of the number of renters in each of the census blocks, and the renters have some concentration down by Ridge Road, and many renters are in the vicinity of the village, and that's the answer to the next question. It's also possible to share this data using interoperability with the Google Earth package, and to do that we would like to search for a tool that'll do some kind of a conversion, and the conversion we want, which we learned when we did the WebGIS exercise, the conversion we want is to convert a layer to what's called a KML file, which is a data format that's compatible with Google Earth. The layer is this one, newly joined, and there's an output file that's going to go wherever it's going to go, and we'll just let that go where it wants to. It's in my documents. I could change the destination of this, or I could note the destination of this, and then go find it later. I think that's the option I'll choose. I'll say OK. Hopefully I'll see a green positive check mark in the corner in a moment, and it tells me I've converted to a KML. Now I can go ahead and look in my documents, which is what I was careful to and I'm going to have to pause because I wasn't careful enough to look carefully. I don't want to waste moments in the video here, so I'm going to go to a pause. It only took me a minute to find it, but it went into the My Documents ArcGIS folder. My memory failed me momentarily. And this is the output file that I just created moments ago. I click on it, and it will be in a KMZ. It's automatically knows that it should open up Google Earth, and it should zoom in and show me probably a mediocre, and that's another error that has to do with something that I did earlier. And if I double click on this, it'll zoom into the layer, and it'll give me a mediocre representation of that shapefile laid on top of Parma, and it doesn't seem to have inherited my colors very well, but the process is fine, and I was glad to see anybody get to this state. Let's see here. I'm going to discard that. The second question in this exercise involved going to Little Washita in Oklahoma, asking for a new blank map, and going to Little Washita in Oklahoma and adding the land use data set, which is a raster data set. LULC we recognize as a land use data set. You could have loaded all three and seen which one was the land use. But there's the land use data set in Little Washita. The exercise asked for us to proceed to the layout view, add a title to the map, and add a legend to the map, and I said nothing fancy, and move it out of the way at least. There's nothing fancy with a map that shows the distribution of land uses in Little Washita watershed. For those of you who managed to, in your very short amount of time, actually substitute the real names for these codes, I was very impressed. If we open the attribute table, we see that 71 and 82 are the codes that are by far the most common land uses, and I threw around a lot of hints, such as the word readme and nudges, that if we look into this lookup table, we can see that 71 and is grassland and herbaceous, and 82 is cultivated crops. Those are the principal land uses in Little Washita watershed. The last question is the pirate treasure question, and in order to do that one, we again need to open up a new blank map. I did suggest that, and I'll go back to the data view, and I did suggest that the pirates are very big fans of the OpenStreetMap base map, because that's the one I used to mock up my fake treasure map. In order to have an idea about doing this georeferencing process, we have to have some idea of what this treasure map looks like. And I made it clear, here's the village of Hilton, and nobody asked me where that was, so I guess if you were really lost, you could have asked, or maybe you were just too far gone at that point. There's Lake Ontario, Braddock's Bay, just to give you a general idea of what the layout of this is. There's the treasure. So in order to georeference it, we do need to approximately zoom in on the actual location of the treasure to georeference the map. And I'll zoom in here on Hilton, Braddock's Bay, etc. And that would be somewhere in this vicinity. And I should see the village of Hilton pretty soon. So there's the village of Hilton up to Braddock's Bay. So the treasure map covers approximately that vicinity. And this is the best way to do it, is to do a georeferencing operation. Excuse me for just a minute. It's useful if the best way to do this is through the georeferencing operation. It is possible that if you're crafty enough, you could do a side-by-side between the OpenStreetMap look and the pirate treasure map, and do a kind of a visual georeferencing. But to show you the absolute awesome way to do it, what one would do is to ask for the georeferencing toolbar from the Customize, and once that's in place, one could go ahead and actually add the treasure map to the obviously it has no spatial reference. That's the point of the georeferencing exercise, and actually add that. It won't be visible until we ask for the fit to display function. And now we can sort of see there's the lake, there's Hilton. In order to do the georeferencing really effectively, we could go right ahead and tell the treasure map to be display transparency to be 60% transparent, which would put us in this position. And now we can see the treasure map on top of the real map. Step one then would be to take a control point, find a good match, and I think that this corner right here is a good match, and drag the map to where it really belongs. And things are tuning in pretty well. We can go over to this location now and use some of the other reference points we have to georeference even better. For instance, by adding a control point here and clicking from the map to where it belongs. Clicking from, well, that looks pretty dandy just like that. And actually I think I should click here to here. And now the map is georeferenced. What can be done? I could go ahead and do more and try and improve the match and everything, but I'm pretty happy with the way this looks right now. And I can see that here's the X marks the spot, and if I fix on that point, turn off the treasure map, I can see that the treasure is right there at that little spot of Edgemere Drive, East Manitou Road. Now that's where the treasure is. I also asked you to attempt to find the soil at that location, and that would be done using the soils tool, the web soil survey that I suggested, that the pirates suggested, web soil survey. And I can go right ahead and control and click, and the web soil survey allows me to zoom in, and there's probably several different ways that you could use the web soil survey, and I just wanted to see how comfortable and used to zooming into an area in one of these online data getter type of applications is. So you can zoom in. We know that it's at Round Pond or Buck Pond or whatever, which one is on the north side, using the visible location, Edgemere Drive and Pond Road right there. And we can zoom in, and those of you who said to me, here's a picture of the treasure site, I would say congratulations, that is where the treasure is, and you did find me a picture. Some of you identified this as Edgemere and some other street, and actually tracked this thing down and used Google Street View to show me a street level view of this, as I am trying to show you right here. We could go to Google Maps and click on Google Maps, and find our best way to get there. Oh, wrong thing. I'm slow to find the simplest. Suppose I should go here. By going this fast, I'm trying to convince myself that that it was possible for anybody to actually finish this exercise in 55 minutes, which I'm starting to get a feeling that it may not have quite been that possible. I've been at this for 15 minutes myself, actually giving you some little more extensive discussions of the whole thing. But there's the wrong pond. And there's the pond I'm after. And again, now we can use the guy. We can place him right there. And I didn't aim very well. But this is, in fact, I aimed very poorly. The actual location of the treasure is right there at that SUV. And as far as identifying the soil type, here we could actually ask for the computer to make this an area of interest. I could create an area of interest and ask for a soil map that matches that area of interest. It tells me right here that it's an LB, which stands for Lake Beaches, and that is the whole quiz.